I want to introduce you to Maggie Weber. She's here to portray the character Sarah Elizabeth Elizer Buchanan. This is Maggie's first year to be with us on the cemetery tour, and we are delighted to have her. Maggie is a student at Volunteer State where she studies art. She's also very interested in fashion, and she's an excellent baker. Also of interest, Maggie and Sarah are related. They are first cousins, but 4 times removed.
Hi folks, my name is Sarah Elizabeth Elizer Buchanan, but you can just call me Sally. I was born November 8th, 1894, here in Sumner County, Tennessee. My mother was Franny Cook Elizer and my father was John T. Elizer. Their first child was my sister Mary Catherine, followed by 3 boys and then me. Daddy was a farmer, so as soon as the boys were old enough to work, he put them to work on the farm. Daddy was 47 when I was born, so he definitely needed the help. School was very important for us too. Us kids learned how to read and write. Life was good, especially for the baby of the bunch. That is, until 1907. Things changed for me in 1907. My mother had passed. I was only 13 years old. And 2 months later, Daddy passed as well. They are both buried here, in Beach Cemetery. Now, I was just a young kid at this time, so you would think I would be frightened by this double loss. But us Elizer kids stuck together. My older brother, Lurton, lived in Nashville, Tennessee, on Pennsylvania Avenue. He was a conductor on a streetcar. We all moved in with Lurton. My sister Mary was a semaphore operator at the pants factory. She had a very important role receiving and sending telegraphs. As for my brothers Robert and Manley, they worked as tailors in the same factory. I was so young at this time, I just went to school and made sure they took good care of me. Now, when I was 17, I married Felix Grundy Buchanan. We got married at the Kentucky Avenue Cumberland Presbyterian Church. It was a beautiful Sunday morning, and my brother Lurton walked me down the aisle. My sister Mary had not yet married yet, but she served as my maid of honor. As for my brother Robert, he was my groomsman. The Tennessee newspaper published an article that described the silk dress that I'm wearing now with white chiffon and real lace. My sister Mary wore a blue silk dress with blue chiffon. After the wedding, we took a short trip to Jolton, Tennessee for our honeymoon. Once we arrived back home, we set up house in West Nashville. I've been under this huge tree for so long, I had almost forgotten just how happy we really were. Now, I've got to say, that wedding trip was pretty successful. 11 months later, we welcomed our first newborn child, William Taylor Buchanan. Felix was working at the hardware store at this time, and I kept house. Not much longer after that, we welcomed our second son, Woodrow, and then Felix Jr., or as we like to call him, Bud. So around 1919, we moved to Metropolis, Illinois. Felix's family was from Illinois, so we just kind of felt like it was the right place to be. He got a job working at the shoe factory, but unfortunately, the big city life just wasn't really for us. So around 1921, when our next son, James Lurton, was born, we moved back to the Whites Creek area of Tennessee. There we welcomed one more son, John, and 2 daughters, Ruby and Sarah. With 7 healthy children, we had a lot of mouths to feed, but they were all healthy, so I guess you could say it was a blessing. We had a lot of helping hands from our family to support as well. Felix's mother, Lydia Buchanan, lived on New York Avenue in Nashville, so she was always around to help out with the children. My sister Mary married Algie Brown. He was a Nashville patrol officer at the time. They never had any children, so she was like a second mother to my bunch. In 1929, we found ourselves living on Brick Church Pike. I was 44 years old at this time, and the weather was unseasonably hot. The temperatures reached over 90 degrees. I suffered a sudden incapacitating stroke, known as apoplexy. I was on bed rest for 6 weeks, just waning away. Luckily, though, I had my sister Mary with me the whole time. She even wrote my death certificate. I guess Felix must have just been beside himself in grief. After I passed away, my sister Mary took my 4 youngest children to live with her. My son William was with her too. William was working as a molder at this time, so I'm sure if he needed to, he definitely could have helped out with the bills and kids. Mary was also caring for Algie's 84-year-old aunt at this time. With all the people for her to take care of, I think this is why Felix, Woodrow, and Bud went to live with Lydia on New York Avenue in Nashville. In September of 1930, a year after they had lost me, they lost my sweet Mary as well, due to a stroke. My children had suffered so much grief in such a short time. I laid here for over a year and a half by myself until February of 1931, those church doors opened wide for me. 2 caskets came rolling out, one just barely smaller than the other. I saw Felix, Lydia, and William walking behind the caskets with tears just rolling down their eyes. Very shortly, you will hear another heartbreaking tale. And who were the occupants of those 2 caskets?